is Loki. And today's episode is quite interesting because there was a huge, CGI heavy story here. And I thought for the most part the CGI looked pretty good, except in certain scenes where it didn't look quite as good. But it was okay. It just didn't look as good as the rest of the show. So if you're going by that comparison, then it's not good. Otherwise, it was fine. I thought that it looked like a movie, like a Star Wars movie in certain scenes. And I really enjoyed this episode. I thought that the ending battle was kind of, well, I wouldn't say it was bad, but I would say that that's not something I personally enjoy, fighting an invisible giant
Hmm.
CGI
Yeah,
monster, thing. I, I think the stakes are too low when that happens. I wonder where we've seen that before, in 2011 maybe.
yeah,
So that kind of reduces the stakes for me personally, but apart from that, I loved the episode. The dynamic between Loki and Sylvie was pretty good. Mobius was pretty good. The different Lokis was interesting to see. Um, and also the ending that, when we see the well, let's say it was a house, I think, a castle, whatever it was. That
yeah,
was very exciting to see because we've been predicting here that we'll probably be seeing Kang, or hearing of Kang at some point in this show. But now more than ever, it seems to me like we are actually going to see him. You know, we are actually going inside a castle, house, whatever. And if we are, then there's a high chance we might see him, right? So that got me really excited, but I just hated the cliffhanger because it was at that exact moment it just went, cut to black, and I was like, damn it. And
yeah,
obviously, I wanted to see where it was going, but that was a good cliffhanger that I hated. But apart from that, the Easter eggs in the episode, there were so many Marvel Easter eggs, from the comics, from the MCU. Some of them were really funny to see there, and I was surprised. But
yeah,
I think of all the shows so far, this episode has the most Easter eggs ever, and I just enjoyed it, man. I'm really looking forward to the next one, though. What did you think of it?
yeah, yeah. I think Loki is a fine show. I don't necessarily. There's obviously a plot, but I don't think it's necessarily plot driven. Or maybe the story and plot isn't as strong as interesting. I think it's very character driven,
Yes.
and that's really why I watched the show. It's because of Mobius. It's because of Loki. If you go back a few episodes ago, we were introduced to Sylvie, Lady Loki. I wasn't really convinced on the actress. Can she match Tom Hiddleston for the way he personifies Loki? And she can't really, but I think she's a brilliant character, and she is a badass Loki, and I think she's doing an amazing job. And I do like the actress now. I wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt because it was only her first time playing the character, and I think now she very much is likable. So I'm enjoying her big time. And look, we all thought Mobius had died last week, and then we got to see Loki kind of be zapped as well. So we understood that, look, they're probably not dead. And what happened is Loki is sent to a planet full of Lokis. And it was pretty interesting to see Richard E. Grant as a Loki. I think he was,
He was
I
great.
think he was more, I think he was more Tom Hiddleston Loki than the other variants.
Yeah.
Kid Loki was okay. The boastful Loki didn't really have much to do.
Yeah.
We got to see an actual, real looking Loki as well. And I thought it was pretty funny. Some of the scenes in this episode, especially when all the Lokis try and turn on each other, and then you have Tom
Yeah.
Hiddleston's reaction to it. That was just brilliant, really, really funny. I thought the alligator Loki weird. I want to see their backstory and how Odin. told the alligator that, son, you're adopted. I'm not your real
Yeah.
father. I want to see that. But yeah, I thought that was all interesting. Some of the shots are actually amazing in this episode. Um, Cinematography, the way that the shots are set up, the green kind of element to it was
Yeah.
pretty cool.
So many
And
lens flares.
yeah, yeah, you love that. But even Ravona as well, we looked like maybe she was going to turn on the TVA. She wanted to find out who's behind the curtain, but she was only playing along with Sylvie, the guards of the TVA to come and try and capture her. So yeah, I don't know what Ravona's end game is here, who she is protecting, or I don't even think she knows who she's protecting right now.
Yeah.
Maybe in the end she might turn on the TVA, whoever it is, or she might join them. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see because she did get Miss Minutes to kind of find out everything she could about them, with the start of time and stuff like that. So we'll have to see how that develops. We only have one episode left, and that's my fear that we only have one episode left, and we still have so many questions. And we were at this stage at WandaVision. We're
Yeah.
also at this stage at the Falcon and the Winter Soldier as well, where we had enjoyed the previous episodes, but we still had a lot of questions. And our worry was
Yeah.
only one episode left. Can they
Finale.
answer all of this? Yeah, and WandaVision, they failed to do that, in my opinion. I think you agree with me. And the Falcon and the Winter Soldier finale, I think they failed to do that as well because a lot of stuff were cut from that. I think maybe because um, it was too similar to what was going on in the real world with COVID and vaccines and stuff like that. So a lot of stuff was cut. We didn't get all the answers there. I thought the finale was rushed. So here we could get another element of that where the finale of Loki is rushed. And what Marvel is really good at doing is setting up the third act, is really getting you in the mood for the third act. And sometimes they nail the finish, sometimes they don't. They leave you wanting more, and sometimes they don't answer all the questions. So we'll have to see how Loki does. And for me, this will make the difference whether this is a great show or just a really, really enjoyable show if they
Yeah.
can stick this last episode. So I'm
Yes.
interested, and
That's the hardest
I don't know
part.
who's it. Yes, exactly. That's what's like. A week from now, I could be very disappointed. But I will say that you know the plot, the story isn't as strong as maybe the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I really felt for the story and the characters in that show, but here it's still good, and I thought it was interesting to see Mobius and Loki. I love those two characters together, and Mobius wants to burn down the TVA. He's going back to the TVA alone, which I'm a little
He
bit kind of
said
sketchy
that.
about.
So
Yeah,
I
you
have
know,
I have these two questions for you, okay? So first question
yeah,
is you obviously posted about Mobius being sketchy and you said that he could be a Loki, right? So
yeah.
my first question is, what do you think? Do you think that Mobius could be a Loki, and just expand on that? But my second question also is, this episode was pretty huge, right, in scale, and they were on a different location, and it was pretty huge. The final battle basically was pretty huge. They basically built a whole Asgard, and then, to just distract that Alliance, and then
Yeah, something like that.
obviously it was a pretty, and obviously I forgot to mention the music for this episode was phenomenal.
Yeah,
I'm just in love with the music, man. It's just amazing. So it felt like a
brilliant.
pretty huge scale epic actions episode, right? So we have one more episode left, and that's the finale. My question is, do you think we'll get a more character based and timeline driven action, or do you think we will have another huge battle sequence or something?
Yeah, the Mobius Loki thing I think is interesting because how did Mobius end up in the Loki variant world? Is it just coincidence? Is it just, oh, we needed him to be there for the plot? Maybe I'm missing something. Now, earlier I thought maybe how did he get the time the temp, is it? The temp where
Yeah,
they're able to go through different
Tempad.
timelines or stuff like that. Yeah, then Alex, who's been a guest here before, pointed out that Sylvie had taken it from Ravone and before she zapped herself and she went into the Loki world. That's fair enough, but how did Mobius get there? That's what I'm kind of interested about.
I think they just whoever the TVA prunes in, inside the TVA, I think they just
He
end
goes to that world.
yeah, they just end up to that void. It doesn't have to
Okay.
be a Loki, but If they wanted to keep that consistent, I think they should have shown someone else too. Like, I thought that I would see that first person in the episode one. Remember, who was making noise at the entrance, and he's the
Yeah,
first one ever to get pruned. I thought we'd probably
yeah,
see him, right? Just to show that
yeah,
anyone could be in, this void place. But we
yeah,
didn't see him, and it was all just Lokis. So it is definitely
yeah,
interesting how you pointed out that the only non-Loki person here is Mobius, and
yeah.
that's
But
interesting.
Reese is a good point. But the reason I don't like this, or how they did in the show, I'll let you know. But Reese says the people on the ship weren't Loki's, and they ended up there.
That's true.
Yeah, that is very true. But for me, it was just done in a subtle way to the side. It just I would have liked an actual character with some dialogue,
Hmm.
or a few characters, or even background extras, just something like
Yeah.
that to show that it's not all Lokis. Okay, because I thought it was
Yeah.
just a bit coincidental that he ran into three Lokis and then they ran into more Lokis and then Sylvie showed up. That's I know for time they have to focus on the Loki characters, but then Mobius comes down in a pizza car, and then I'm just kind of and then the ship shows up with all these random guys. But I didn't know if that was because random people come to this planet or I actually they didn't. I don't know why they were there. That's what I kind of gathered from that. I would have liked them to
The
maybe
entire
expand
ship
on it a little
just
bit more.
dropped out of nowhere.
Yeah, and I was like, all right, cool. Did somebody do this? I expand on it a little more. That's why I was kind of a little bit taken back by it, and I just thought it was a lot of coincidence. Maybe it's just coincidence.
Hmm.
They needed them for the story, and that's okay. Okay, 100%. But
Yeah.
yeah, is Mobius Loki? I originally thought that, but then the look he kind of gives Sylvie, "You're my favorite" and stuff like that. And then he goes back to the TVA on his own, and he says he's going to burn down the TVA. Like, would he really go back on his own? Like, what's he going to do? He's only a human being. He doesn't have any powers or anything like that. So, like, why would he go back and expose himself to the TVA in a way? Maybe he could sneak around and maybe release Hunter B-15, something like that. But I just thought maybe he might have waited, or maybe went with somebody else. That's
Yeah.
kind of interested by. So I I like Mobius as a character, as a good guy. I want to see him ride a jet ski. I hope he's not
Yeah.
a bad guy or maybe a Loki, but then again, maybe he could be because right now, who is the villain of this show? We don't really know,
What if
and
he's the Lokiest Loki?
he
The
could be.
original
Actually, I don't know.
Loki.
Like, would you be surprised if he was?
I would be a little disappointed, uh, because I want someone new or someone unexpected to be there. Right now, I'm expecting Kang, which is kind of expected, but that would make me happy. And the second option everyone's thinking is obviously another Loki variant, um, you know, and who's pure evil this time. And
Yeah,
the third option, which I'm right now considering, is we'll see, like you said, a version of Mobius or this Mobius, who's gone bad or whatever.
I think Mobius is a great character. I just really
Yeah,
like him. I thought the worst episode for this season was the episode he wasn't in, which was
yeah,
episode three, I think it was.
yeah,
I think he's such a likable character, and Owen Wilson, who like isn't knowledgeable in the MCU or superheroes and stuff like that. Tom Hiddleston actually had to educate him on the history of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He just comes in and gives a casual, kind of laid back
yeah.
but also emotional
He's always
performance
so
as
chill.
Mobius. And yeah, so maybe I think it's one of the best Marvel performances that we've
Yeah,
seen. I think the acting between Tom Hiddleston and the actress that plays Sylvie was great, and yeah, I just thought it was a really fun, funny episode with some heavy moments attached to it as well, and the cinematography, the shots. I will agree, fighting a big smoke monster, you know, maybe not the greatest
yeah,
villain to fight or something like that. It would have been cool, maybe something like a CGI monster, like the dogs of Thor Ragnarok,
yeah.
the giant dogs, something like that would have been cool. It just kind of, I wasn't really intimidated by the giant mist.
I guess they had to use that plot device to create a barricade so that it can reveal who is behind the curtain. And
Yeah,
also, this character is from the comics, so I guess they saw this to be the best option. I don't know.
yeah, maybe it could have been a budget thing as well. Maybe it's just easier to do a fog or a mist instead of an actual big monster that was able to move around and stuff like that. So yeah, it's fine. I thought it was more of a scene I thought to show the connection between Sylvie and Loki and how they can use their powers and how they're willing to sacrifice each other. And then Richard E. Grant was willing to sacrifice himself to save a version of himself of
Yeah.
Loki. So I that was pretty cool. And I think Richard E. Grant. I don't know if he'll ever come back, but I think he was the best Loki variant that we've seen so far in terms of a male side of it. Sylvie, of course, being female, but just out of Kid Loki, out of forceful Loki, the alligator, I think Richard E. Grant was definitely brilliant, even though he was in the most ridiculous costume
Yeah.
ever.
That's what I think was intentional, because you don't expect him to be that, right? Be the hero who saves them. You expect him to just be the random Thor Ragnarok type background character that just makes fun, makes jokes and stuff, But
Yeah,
I think they did him pretty well, and his story was good enough, and his role in the series was also good enough. So I think he was great. Re75 says Kid Loki had that device. Maybe he can track Loki's. That's possible. We'll have to wait and see, but I don't think in the next episode we'll be seeing them again. I think it will just focus more on Loki, Sylvie, um, and
yeah.
Ravonna.
I think we'll have two parallel storylines going on. I think we'll have Sylvie, Loki, and whoever this mysterious person or monster is in the mansion, the castle, and then the other one will be kind of Mobius and Ravonna.
Yeah, I agree. And he also says the guy in the house is Lightning McQueen.
That'd be cool.
Listen, man, I have no idea who could that be, but from looking at the visuals and stuff, it looks like there's a Thor Bifrost space type background. So it's definitely someone big, like Thanos level big. So maybe it's Kang, maybe it's someone else. I don't know. Uh, I was doubting that Kevin Feige would introduce Kang in this show, and not in the movie. But right now, after seeing this episode, my hopes have gone up because this is pretty big budget stuff, and it was a pretty big scale thing to do. So they also showed that house, and it's basically in space or whatever. And I don't know, man. I just think that he'll finally do it. I think they'll show us Kang. Maybe not in costume yet. Maybe he'll just be a person. Um, so I don't know. I have high hopes than I had last last week. I have now much higher hopes that we will see him.
Do you think we see Jonathan Majors?
Yeah. Listen,
That
he
would
was
be.
he was cast way back, right? And you have to remember that even before the announcement came, which was in 2020, early 2020, Loki hadn't even started filming yet. And when he was cast, he only needs to go for like one or 2 days, and then go back. So I don't know. It's
What
it's
if?
very possible.
What if? Okay, so Loki is the one who introduced kind of Thanos. He worked for Thanos in 2012 for New York. He was the one trying to get was it the Tesseract or what was he trying to get for Thanos? Or take over Earth, wasn't it? Just
Yeah.
take over kind of stuff like that. Beat the Avengers. He's the one that introduced Thanos. He was working for Thanos. Could we see a variant of Loki working for Kang the Conqueror? And that's what's happening. And we don't get to see Kang until the actual movie of Ant-Man 3. So in this other timeline, a bad, even worse version of this Loki is working for Kang the Conqueror, and that's who they confront. Maybe Loki has to defeat himself before himself does what himself did with Thanos that helped him. Could you see something
Yeah,
like that, and then maybe just a reference to Jonathan Majors?
that's possible, and I wouldn't be disappointed if that happens. Because I just want to mention of Kang or something because they have been teasing very heavily. Even in this episode, there were multiple Easter eggs that referenced him.
Yeah,
So I wouldn't be, I would actually kind of be shocked if they didn't touch on Kang at all. I think at least a mention will be needed. And
yeah,
Anthony Strader says, "What if King Loki is behind all of this and is the villain?" Well, that's very possible. Like I said, that's the second. I think that's the second most likely thing that we will see. Um, King Loki being there, it's definitely the house that the house looks like a castle in space.
yeah,
So it could very well be King Loki. But I don't know if that's compelling enough for the current team to take down. And I don't know what the end game would be after that. So
yeah.
that's the reason I don't think it's the most likely thing.
Yeah, I don't know who's going to be. I'm not going to put all my money on Kang the Conqueror because I don't want to be kind of disappointed or
Yeah.
expecting him to show up. So it could absolutely be anybody. It could be somebody working for Kang the Conqueror and just sets it up for the movies. So look, we'll have to wait and see. But it has to be pretty big if they're setting all this build up for them going to this big castle to find whoever it is. Sylvie has her kind of ploy to kill whoever it is, and Loki wants to stop all this as well. So yeah, it's setting up for an interesting finale with so many questions. But in 50 minutes, can they answer all of those questions and satisfy us? you know,
Yeah.
but
I hope it's
we
one
got the
hour.
yeah, that would be awesome. And like this episode felt like on the scale of a movie in terms of the
Yeah.
budget and effects and stuff like that. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really good episode. I still don't think this is the best MCU show yet. The last episode could be amazing and change my mind, but I've enjoyed it big time. I think I'm more interested in the characters than the story. Mobius, Loki, Sylvie, even Hunter B-15 and the characters like that are just very likable and interesting to watch. So hopefully they all get a good ending and kind of conquer us and kill all of them.
Yeah, man. So I'm really excited for next week's discussion. I hope we'll be very excited and talking about it in a good way rather than being disappointed, which was the case for WandaVision. I was really hyped every single week, and then the finale just killed it for us in a
Yeah,
bad way. So, yeah, I hope that we will be very excited next week when we are discussing this. And the question I have for you guys is, what do you think of, who could be the man behind the curtain or woman? Who created the TVA, and who are we gonna meet in the next episode? Let us know in the comments below, and if you're right, we'll definitely give you a shout out on the show, and that will be fun.